From the banks of the Allegheny to the shores of Jersey, welcome to Film Bits, Two Cups of Joe. Hey, we took a break, but we're back.
We are back, and it feels good to be back.
It feels very good to be back. I'm looking at 2021 as Judd Hirsch said in Breakfast Club to be a banner year for Two Cups of Joe.
There you go. I'm in, brother. Let's do it.
Okay, so when last we left off, there had been this big kerfuffle. The cop is trapped. He's duct taped to the chair. Everyone has left but Mr. Blonde. Why they left this guy with Mr. Blonde? Well, so they could give us the most memorable scene of this movie, I guess. Right, Joe?
Yeah, basically. I mean, nothing else makes sense there other than it's time.
So the wide was set up from the last scene, and Tarantino sat in that wide, and now he's transitioned into that kind of medium close, and we get that POV of Blonde. Look at that little grin.
Well, I mean, you get a really good glimpse of Blonde here. Like, he's alone at last, to me, is the greatest line in the movie, almost.
Yeah.
I think I'm parked in a red zone.
Now, where were we?
I told you I don't know anything about any fucking setup. I've been on the force for only 8 months. They don't tell me anything. Nobody tells me shit. They can torture me all you want.
Torture you. That's a good idea. I like that one. Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't give Blonde any ideas. Just saying.
Yeah.
What? You boss. Excuse me, pal. One thing I want to make clear to you. I don't have a boss.
To me, this little exchange here is pretty telling, too, because your boss, and Blonde is quick to correct him, like, no, I don't have a boss. Sorry.
Right. Which is strange, too, because he's very tight with Joe. They have history. They go back. So, if anything, you'd think he'd be like, okay, I'll admit to that. But he does show a side of himself like, okay. And we see why he went rogue,
It seems almost as if, yes, he respects Joe, he likes Joe, but he doesn't look at it as Joe's his boss at all.
But I'm going to torture you anyway. Regardless. I have to get information. It's amusing to me to torture a cop. You can say anything you want.
Yeah, see, to him, the torture doesn't have much to do with information. He just wants to torture the cop.
Right. And his masochism, his sadism comes into play here.
You ain't gonna get it.
I mean, this is a guy who clearly has issues with authority, as we've seen throughout the entire film.
God. Look at that smile. Tarantino goes, obviously back to the wide so we can get all of that. We don't need to see the cop's face. We can tell everything we need to by his body, but we have to go wide to see him do this and to also show Blonde's glee. And now we go to the close.
Oh. Straight razor.
And just that juxtaposition of playing music while showing that straight razor, because we know what Billy Super Sounds of the 70s is by now. And if you haven't seen this scene, guys, I'm going to warn you, it's going to get a little graphic, but this is the most famous scene of the movie.
I think even people who haven't seen the movie have heard of this scene by now, for the most part.
Yeah.
And again, I think the music, everything is just so telling about the character, man. This isn't something he's doing because he has to or because he's thoroughly enjoying himself right now. You think he was paying homage to Ric Flair here a little bit?
I haven't seen the screenplay, but I think it was as simple as Blonde does a dance and Madsen is improvising it.
Madsen to me is also one of the true underrated actors of
Yeah.
our time.
Yeah. Ouch.
Oh. Yeah.
And this is now this is a Scorsese move right here. Scorsese popularized in the modern day the camera that does an unintentional move and looks away. All right. So we know what's going on. We don't need to see it. It's not a horror film.
It's funny that you said that because there is a movie.
Let's pause here, Joe. Let's
Um,
pause.
sure, there is a movie actually called Swingers with John
Yes, I
Favreau, where
know it.
Favreau accuses Tarantino of ripping off Scorsese at every turn.
Well, hey, if we're being honest, um, I mean, Tarantino does do a lot of homage or ripping off, depending. I was watching Inglorious Bastards on Amazon, and I had the X-ray on because I love reading all those tidbits. And they pointed out at least 8 to 10 places where he was using shots or setups or things from other films, right? But what I think is important about there's two things important about since this is Tarantino's first film. Number one is he doesn't blanch at the gore. We see the razor hit the face and the guy go bloody, and we are going to know Tarantino as a director who doesn't mind getting bloody. Kill Bill Part 1 famously used, gallons of fake blood, thousands of gallons of fake blood. But when it's getting really graphic and we're getting into slasher kind of gross horror material, at least for this film, he doesn't need to show it and doesn't want to show it. So we get that lovely unmotivated camera move. And for those of you watching it and starting to pick up on this stuff, the camera goes where it's supposed to go all the time, right? Shows us action. There, the camera had a mind of its own. It literally moved like, what the hell caused that to happen? Because Tarantino doesn't need to show that. But we're still going to get some more graphic stuff after this.
I think part of that is also I've heard so many people throughout the years say, "Why didn't he give us that shot?" But your mind is a lot better than any movie can ever be sometimes.
Right.
So as he pans away, you're beginning to think about what is he about to do? We know he's taking the blade to him, but what's he going to do?
Right.
And you start going everywhere else under the sun, and when you find out what he has done, you're like, wow, that's. And again, Madsen just delivers an amazing piece here. Really gets into the character, showing us that Blonde is just throwing himself in. He's just having a lot of fun here. There is no real reason for this. He just wants to do this. This is who he is.
Yeah, exactly right. It makes me think of, too, Seven, which is something I don't know if we'll do it together, if I do it on my own, but Seven gets a bad rap. But if you watch Seven, you never see a murder in that film that's part of the Seven Deadly Sins serial murder. You always get there in the aftermath. So you kind of get this urban legend about, oh, Seven is so gross and stuff, but everything is after the fact, And again, it's that same thing that you brought up, Joe, where your mind can do more than actually being shown. And the Korean version of Old Boy does that beautifully. It walks the line of graphic violence versus pulling the camera away and you getting literal shivers at a couple points in that film because your mind is going, oh my God, that kind of thing.
Well, you think about it, it's something that a lot of directors, producers, horror movies have done it forever, right? They'll give you a lot, but sometimes right at the moment when something horrible is about to happen, they pan away and you just see the after effects, leaving your mind to fill in the gaps.
Right.
And sometimes that creates some of the best experiences.
Totally agree. Where we're frozen on, where we froze on, I'll bring back the picture here. You notice that Blonde has a hunk of something red and bloody in his hands. Joe, let's pick it back up.
Yes, sir.
My favorite part is coming up right here. It's so dark.
Is that as good for you as it was for me?
There he is.
I love that.
Oh, my God.
And then he just tosses it. Quick pause, Joe. Quick pause. Mm-hmm. Since we're both wrestling guys, it just reminds me of when when Foley was in Germany and lost his ear, and the nurse, they saved the ear and brought it to the hospital, and the nurse casually throws it into the garbage can. And he's like, that's my ear!
Yeah. That's exactly what this poor officer right now is thinking as he just chucks it off to the side. That's my ear. Maybe to you it's not a big deal, but you just cut off my ear. And you just tossed it aside.
Yeah,
Like it was, the empty cup from McDonald's. Come on
right,
now.
right. One other quick thing since we're paused is the way Blonde examined that ear. Like he was curious. Like he cuts it off and he's not just like laughing at the like he takes a moment to go, oh man, it's an interesting little bit that Tarantino devotes a few seconds to.
Yeah, and of course you hear that line?
Yeah,
That's I mean, whew, that's some that's some next level stuff. Like it shows how much this character was really enjoying this moment right now.
let's pick it back up, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Okay, so we have a good little bit here, right? The music, because we are hearing and the characters are hearing it, we call that diegetic sound because we both hear it. Now, I like what Tarantino does this. Rather than cut the music, I mean, he paid for it. Hell, he's going to get his time out of it. He opens the door and then closes it, and the music stops as Blonde does what he's going to do in his car. But we'll see when he re-enters, that music is going to pick up again. And I just think it's a really cool effect, particularly since Tarantino is using kind of pop culture music, not score, in this film, and in most of his films, actually.
Right, and I think it also, because of the camera he's using here too, kind of like that loose, bobbing along.
Yeah,
It feels like we're walking, like we're taking the walk. So if you left the warehouse, the music would obviously not be traveling with you outside. It just kind of puts us more into the shoes of Mr. Blonde at that moment.
exactly. And he goes back to the dance.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Again,
Tim
just a
Roth.
Ric Flair shuffle.
Just yeah. Something else that needs to be considered here is Tim Roth is bleeding out. Blonde doesn't give a damn. He actually went over to him, but he's going to spend 5 minutes torturing this guy rather than trying to get Orange some help.
I don't think he has a care in the world for Orange. The way he looks at it probably is you shouldn't have got yourself got.
Right.
But
Real
it's
tight
ironic
shot.
that you brought Orange up because I think a lot of people at this point would have forgotten he was even in the room
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're watching the film.
Yep.
Stop. What? Don't. What's the matter?
Don't do this. Please.
That burn a little bit?
Stop.
Again, why not just dump the whole can all over him? Why do it little by little? Because he's enjoying every second of it.
Please. Don't burn me, please. Look. I'm begging you.
This is almost like an old cartoon gag. You would see cartoon characters do this.
Yeah.
The track of gasoline. Great look right there.
You all through?
Please. Look, I got a little kid on now. Please.
Now the cops pulling out all the stops, trying to get him to stop.
Fire scared.
And
Oh! Now there's a shock. First time I saw that blew my mind.
yeah, I think even he's shocked right now that he was able to do it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Now look at that blood. It just, again, Tarantino's known for a lot of blood. I love Roth's acting here. Still pointing. I mean, he's 3/4 dead. He's got, quarts of blood leaking out of him, and that's a great little drop there. And now we see why why Orange was still trying to point the gun, because Blonde has staggered all the way back. Love this bit. A lot of blood here.
Yeah, and again, it's just something that Tarantino is known for. He likes to pile on the blood, if you will. And this poor cop. I mean, look at this poor cop. Both of them.
Yeah.
Look at both of these guys. These guys have been through a war right now.
Yeah.
And you can see it.
Stop. Hey. Shit.
Hey, you.
Yeah, and again, like you pointed out, man, Roth's acting here, just even portraying the fact that he's essentially half dead trying to talk, Great delivery here.
And also trying to be control and stop this guy from panicking, because the guy was almost about to spill the beans.
Listen to me more than Nash. I'm a cop.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
I
here you
know.
see,
Yeah,
he's
I
like,
know.
yeah, I knew that. Like, well,
Yeah, your name's Freddy something. Noondyke.
what is that name?
Freddy Noondyke.
Noondyke's a
Like, who
Canadian
come?
last name. I know that.
Even who comes up with
Frankie
these? Like, where does
Frusciante
Tarantino get these names from?
introduced
Seriously.
us about 5 months ago.
Well, he didn't have to work too hard on all the main characters.
Well, true, very true. Yeah.
I too. Fuck. Freddy. 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 How do I look? How do I look?
Really?
What?
That's.
What?
Oh, I always thought that was a good line.
Me
How do
too.
I look? Like,
I don't know what to tell you, Marv. That fuck. That sick fuck. That fucking bastard. Marv, I need you to hold on. This cop's waiting moving
now,
fast.
right here, this has been a part that I was always curious about, right?
The fuck are
Where
they
he
waiting
says
for?
cops are blocks away.
This fucking guy slashes my
Right?
face
Why are they waiting?
and he cuts my fucking ear off. I'm fucking deformed. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm fucking dying here. I'm fucking dying.
Let's deal with that, Joe. Okay.
Okay.
Um, it is my take that because Orange is so deep undercover that they were waiting on some kind of signal. That they don't want to fuck it up because Orange is going to signal them when the guys have the diamonds and the cops can pull them over or raid or whatever. And until they get that signal, they don't want to possibly blow this whole thing. That's the way. And obviously, Orange is in no shape to give them that signal yet.
So your understanding here is essentially the cops have no idea the shape orange is in, basically.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. See, throughout most of the time I've seen this film, I've always gone with the opinion that they knew. Like they knew he was in this bad of shape and they just didn't come in, which never made a lot of sense to me. I guess because he was undercover, I assumed they'd have some way of knowing the shape he was in at this point.
Yeah.
But I guess that's not a guarantee. And you're right, maybe because he's so deep undercover, they are waiting for him to give them the hey, now's the moment so they don't destroy what has been essentially months of police work here.
Exactly, Joe. Exactly. Let's pick it back up.
Not to make a move till Joe Cabot shows up.
I like that shot.
Something to get in.
Yeah.
Shows up. All
And
right?
it looks like something out of a horror film, honestly.
He said he's on his way. Don't pussy out of me now, Martin. He said he's on his way. Don't pussy out of me. We're just gonna sit here and bleed.
Great line.
Joe Cabot sticks his
Yeah,
fucking
we're just
head
gonna
through that
sit
door.
here and bleed.
Joe Cabot sticks his fucking head through that door.
Joe, I'm going to let you. This is where we're going to stop this episode as we
Okay.
get into Mr. Orange's story. I'm going to let you go ahead and kind of give us your final thoughts or other things that have popped up, and then I'll jump in and feed off of you.
So, to me, I love Tarantino's work. I always have. And to me, the torture scene is honestly one of his best pieces that I've ever seen because it's not just him, honestly. Obviously, it's his film, but Madsen's work in it. Mr. Blonde, the way he goes through everything, how deep you can tell he's really just enjoying the fact that he's getting to torture a cop and could honestly care less that one of his partners is on the floor bleeding out. He could care less. And then again, the acting by Tim Roth is superb when he finally does show his moments there when Orange comes to. And like you said, that moment really was like a holy crap moment. Like, what just happened here? I don't think anyone saw that moment coming. It was a great moment in the film, and altogether, even the cop in the chair, they all sell this scene so well, and I think that's what makes it such a legendary scene is the performances by all three of these guys, because it's a very simple scene, really. There's not a whole lot going on, other than between these characters. So if any one of them doesn't deliver a good performance here, it kind of kills the scene. So again, very well done by all three of these guys. I was very impressed.
Just to remind you guys who are watching this in parts, and Pink was the one that came in and said, we were set up, I think there's a rat. Let's not forget that. Okay.
Right.
Pink was the one who didn't want to tip at the diner, right? Pink is this very interesting kind of character. And he's been spot on. He was spot on that there was a rat. He was spot on, and that he wanted to get out of there, and then they kind of coaxed him to stay there. We see, even though it is not a lot of time has been developed to it, we see that White and Orange kind of have this mentor-mentee relationship. White really is looking at Orange as a kid who's on the come up kind of thing. And Orange, of course, as an undercover cop, he's going to play into that the whole entire way. The other thing I wanted to say here is, again, the usage of the camera wasn't... It was pretty static for most of it. We got that handheld when we went outside and came back in. Second time we've seen that happen, where we've gone outside and come back in. And I guess the shock value, and then I think Tarantino set up a few shots after Blonde had died, including the shot where we see him die against the wall, that I think adds a little more interest in as far as his shot selection. Last thing. I was thinking about this as I rewatched this recently. There can be interpreted from this a moral of, I mean, it's a crime film, and Tarantino started off writing a bunch of crime films. He wrote True Romance, even though he didn't direct it. He wrote this. He wrote Jackie Brown and Pulp Fiction right after these. He wrote Natural Born Killers. So he started off doing a lot of crime stuff. But at least in this film, it's like if you do the good thing, you're screwed. And it seems like that's a societal message. The only person who cares about Orange's plight is another hood, another gangster. Even the cop, okay, granted, he just had his ear cut off, okay? But that cop doesn't care about Orange, and he knows Orange is another cop. He's more worried about himself and how he looks. Yep. So there could be some social commentary going on in here. I'm not saying there is, but I'm saying we can read it that way. And that's all I got.
I still think that's one of the greatest lines ever, though. How do I look?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just, again, you're right, though. Like, even this cop, he does not care. He's more like, hey, do I look disfigured to you? Like, am I going to look terrible for the rest of my life? Not even of the least bit concerned that he's laying there bleeding out on the floor and he's a fellow brother in blue.
Right.
It's a very telling moment. Really is, and you're right. Don't do the right thing.
yeah, or you get screwed. So next episode, we're going to get all of Mr. Orange's story. Tarantino waits 2/3 of the movie to reveal he is the rat/cop, and now we're going to see how he came to be here. It's a great little segment. Joe, good to be back with you, my brother. I'm all fired up. I've enjoyed this.
I am thrilled to be back, brother. I am ready to go, raring to go. Get Reservoir Dogs done, and let's do a bunch more, man. I love doing these.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. All right, so until the next time, which for me and Joe is going to be about a minute, but for you guys will be a little longer until you see the next one. Take care. Thank you for any time you gave us, and we'll see you for Mr. Orange.
Be good, guys.